So today I'm going to talk to you about communication in my workplace that suffers, which is customer service, technology communication, and then we also have disciplinary procedures that we have to use with some employees. A person that I like to use whenever I'm doing safety meetings with employees or talking to them about appropriate conversation is Stephen Covey. He is no longer doing these as he has passed, but he did motivational speaking on workplace communication and relationships for over 20 years, and he's got some fantastic videos if you guys ever get a chance to watch any of those. And one of the things that he says is communication is the most important skill in life. We spend most of our waking hours communicating, but consider this: you've spent years learning how to read and write, years learning how to speak, but what about how to listen? And I think that's really interesting. He says once you know how to listen, you will profit from even those who talk badly. So how do we listen is by giving them our full attention, making sure that we're completely engaged, that there's no background noise, that there's no distractions that are happening, that you're giving them your full one-on-one. You're making eye contact, and then when you're done, hopefully you have some sort of repertoire or back and forth to where you're making sure that you understand their point of view versus what you want to understand. Communication is one of our fundamental building blocks for our life. It's a skill set, and so as we go through today, that's what I wanted to discuss with you, is how we look at that when it comes to customer service. Ernest Hemingway, one of the writers and poets of our time, said, "How little we know of what there is to know." Should be something that you gauge whenever you're trying to speak with someone. They ultimately have information that you don't have, and even if they have the same information, they may have it in a way that is different from the way that you have it, because everybody perceives things differently. The culture of your work environment is also the personality of it. It is essentially the same thing. Your culture is your personality. When you're going through your culture at work, you're displaying the personalities of everyone that you work with, including yourself. And so every team and every organization has a culture, but very few of them have a winning culture. There are more employees that say they are disengaged and unsatisfied with their current working environment than maybe ever before. The way that you can promote a positive culture and personality is to be trustworthy and make sure that you maintain confidentiality. Those are different. You can be a trustworthy person and have someone tell you something, and maybe you don't realize that you're not supposed to share that. So by never sharing anything without permission, you maintain that confidentiality. Engaging in the pressing issues, actively listening and participating in discussions, and addressing negative situations directly and swiftly. Now, this is something that we've struggled with in my company. You have a lot of negativity running rampant. I mean, we deliver 12,000 kids a day to school. We have attitude from kids, we have attitudes from drivers, we have attitudes from parents. In fact, more often than not, by the time I reach 8 a.m., when most people are going to work, I have been cussed out about 10 times, okay? Every day. There's not a day at work when school is in that I'm not getting cussed out, okay? So what do? When that happens to me, I'm just listening. I let the parent vent, I let them say what they need to say, and then I go into the resolve mode, and I make sure that I understand what their concern is, tell them that I will make sure and address that situation, and then we go into resolving the issue. Determine the merit of complaint. Don't give in to negativity. And what I mean by that is, just because you don't feel like that complaint from that person is important doesn't mean that you should disregard it. To them, it is important, and therefore it needs to be addressed. When we resolve the issues, we have to clarify them. What I mean by clarifying is making sure that our understanding is what they want it to be. So when we're talking about communicating and culture and personality, tonight we've all talked about how people interact with each other. I go at it from a position of myself. How am I interacting with people? How am I making the day better? How am I understanding what they're saying? How am I correcting the behavior that I had earlier that I didn't care for? Because when I address the situations that start with me, I know I can go home at the end of the day and I've done the best that I can. I've been successful. It's also really important to be genuine, to be clear, seek advice. It's always good to seek advice. I've been a supervisor since I started working. I just happened to fall into it. I've done it my entire life. And I've worked with some fantastic employees. And sometimes you just need advice on where to go. And the best thing you can do is make sure that you do that. Don't have a prideful situation where you don't. And probably the most important thing is to let it go. Laugh about it. If you're having a bad day, there's something comical in there. It's all about your viewpoint. The technology that we use, being in education, we have the same situation. We have emails, phone calls, internet systems that are going crazy. I mean, we've got an own cloud and a parent portal, and so there's tons of information that are being submitted to these things, and they're all online. The things that we need to say sometimes need to be said in person. The things that we want to say sometimes definitely should be said in person. So there was a Dr. Domagalski. She is a professor at a university, and she says, it's important to note that the desire to use the most efficient method of communication does not necessarily result in the most efficient. You want to make sure that they're the same. I absolutely agree with what he said about just get up and walk over there and talk to him. The way that my face looks and the way that my voice sounds is going to be completely different than what you're reading on that screen for a very simple message. Always considering who you're talking to and convey the appropriate tone, and then be empathetic. If you have somebody who has snapped at you, what I do, again, reflecting on myself, is I think about, okay, what happened in their day? That is not the person I know what happened in their day. They could have a family member that's hurt or ill. They could be hurt or ill. I always look at it from a viewpoint of giving them the benefit of the doubt, and that helps me do my job better. For employee discipline, unfortunately I deal with this quite a bit where I'm at. Not because they have these huge issues, but because every day something happens that we have to talk about. Hey, did you run a stop sign in a neighborhood when you thought nobody was watching? Or did you say shut up and sit down to that kid because you don't want to do that kind of thing? So it's better to be proactive when you're dealing with employee discipline, and communicating that is the best way you do it. Out of the supervisors in my office, I'm probably the only one that can tell you the first and last name of every one of my employees. I can tell you how many kids they have. I can tell you about their grandkids. I can tell you if their mother is sick. I can tell you if they're having financial difficulty, because I take the time to invest in my people. And I want to know what they're going through so that I can help resolve the issues they have throughout the day. So if you're proactive about talking to them, the first step is not to just go to your discipline. You want to make sure and say, hey, what's happening? How can I help you? What can I do? And you're always respectful. I do not have any conversations with an employee that is disrespectful to them. I wouldn't want them to treat me that way. I do not treat them as though I'm their superior. I'm their colleague. It doesn't matter that they're my employee, I'm their colleague. I carefully consider and plan the messages when it's something that's pretty sensitive. I mean, if I have to have a conversation about something regarding an accident or perhaps a random drug test or anything like that, I plan ahead. I want to know exactly what I'm talking about with them, because sometimes you have people get you into these situations where it's the hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil type thing, and they didn't do it. And luckily for me, I have lots of evidence that they did because we have video monitoring. But it's always good to plan what it is that you're saying to them, so that you don't get drawn into a debate about if they were wrong or not. And then to motivate. If I have to talk to someone, when I'm done, I let them know that they're still important, that they've still been doing a fantastic job for me, and that this was just a little glitch in their day. I don't want their day to be ruined. I don't want them to have a bad day. I want them to go back out there and kick some tail and make a good impression on people. And then if after all of that there's an issue, of course I have to move forward with other disciplinary proceedings, but I always use the same style. I want them to be treated the way that I want to be treated. I want to treat them that way. And I want them to react to me the way that hopefully that would happen as well. So I always consider everything from the point of view that I'm using, and then I make sure and listen for the point of view that they're coming from. Because I'm only responsible for me, and I want to make sure that they see the best person they can. So when it comes to my work and the conversations and communication issues we have, it is definitely employee discipline, technology, and customer service. Thank you.